Brandon, can you really quickly talk so that I can make sure that I'm getting you on my recording?
I'm very good at talking about a lot of random things. I'll just talk about that's probably enough. Actually, we'll just stop there.
Cool. Yeah, that was perfect. Thank you.
Will this recording be posted anywhere afterward?
Yep,
Um,
I'll be. Oh,
Perfect. Yeah.
sorry.
No, no, you're good. You talk. I was going to defer to you.
Oh, okay. Yes, I'll be posting it in the forums and probably uploading it to YouTube as well. It might take a couple days since I'll have to sort through the files and everything, but it will definitely be posted somewhere.
Okay, cool.
And I just told the other channel this. So I had a couple people that were interested in Only Connect haven't reached out to me yet. So if anyone else here is interested in playing my game, uh, PM me, TX Joe. I will get you looped in and get you on one of the teams.
All right. So it looks like it's now whatever time is your local 30. So I guess we're gonna get started pretty quick, or pretty much right away. Um, so for any of you who missed the memo, this is going to be corner cases and why they matter. My name is Brandon Scyner. As a quick introduction, I'm a level 2 judge from Alberta, Canada. Um, Given this is a presentation, I have Discord pulled up on another screen, so if you have any questions or any comments or anything, just type it out in the Discord chat for Room 1 text, as that's the one I'm currently monitoring. And I'll try and pay attention to that so that you're able to, or so that you can actually communicate with me, as there will be a small amount of well, it's corner cases. Of course, I'm going to ask you questions. Yeah, beyond that, we will get started. So, this is going to be kind of what will be covered. As this is an experimental judge conference, this is going to be a departure from what I normally do, because I normally do very hard skill stuff, like CR stuff, and this will be covering up some of that, but not all will be focused on that. So first, we're going to kind of cover a brief introduction. So what exactly is a corner case? And then we're going to, it's a corner case presentation. We got to at least include some examples of corner cases with varying difficulties. And then also, we're going to be covering corner cases as a concept themselves. And that'll be covering what makes corner cases kind of good to actually discuss, what makes them maybe not so good to discuss, and different things about that. One thing of note, it's not going to be just rapid fire corner cases for the entire presentation. It'll have some, and it's going to discuss the utility of corner cases in judging communities. So if that's what you're expecting, I'm just going to make sure that expectations are set appropriately. When you answer a question, please read the question out first for the recording. Sounds good. I will do that. All right. So first and foremost, corner cases. What exactly are they? Well, they're sometimes called pathological cases, especially in kind of different fields, but for Magic we normally call them corner cases, as just any kind of problem situation that occurs outside of the normal operating parameters, or when multiple variables or conditions are simultaneously at extreme levels. So that's kind of really high level. What does that actually mean for anything to do with Magic itself? Well, just kind of cards would be the conditions, and how obscure their text would be kind of the level of the how extreme it could be. So a really good example of a corner case would be, let's say I have some kind of creature, maybe a grizzly bear or something, and I cast giant growth on it. Obviously, this is a terrible example because grizzly bear has no relevant rules text, and giant growth doesn't really do anything strange, so we can collectively agree, oh, this is just obviously not a corner case. Whereas if we do kind of anything with Panglacial Worm, it suddenly becomes significantly more of a corner case because Panglacial Worm has some really weird rules text. Don't worry, it's not going to be popping up because it's just a messy card and I don't like talking about it too much. So let's get into some examples of actual corner cases. So let's say we have active player. We'll call them Anthony. And then we've got a non-active player whose names, I guess, always start with N. So we'll just go with Nanthony for not Anthony. So Anthony, he's got a wonderful card, Jace Wielder of Mysteries. Been making lots of waves. And because it's probably relevant, he's got another 6 cards left in his library. Not Anthony also has a Jace Wielder of Mysteries, though. And they also have 8 cards in their library. So let's say that this is some kind of standard, and they are playing, and one of them plays a folio of fancies. The question here is, what happens if I activate, or if Anthony, or whoever, yeah, we'll go with Anthony, activates the second ability of Folio Fancies, the XX tap. Each player draws X cards and says that X is, say, 30,000. If you answer in the Discord chat, I will read it out for the sake of the recording, and then discuss it. Yes, it is very fanciful. Okay, so we've one person saying that they would both lose, which makes sense because everyone's trying to draw cards. If both players would win, it would be a draw. So why would you say they would both lose in this case? I'm going to try and pronounce your name, but I'm going to butcher it. Federico?
Is it okay if I talk?
Go for it.
If you don't mind. Isn't there a rule that says if you both would win and lose at the same time, then you lose?
I do believe that is the case. That rule, however, will not actually apply here.
Oh, because you wouldn't lose.
You
So
you wouldn't
wouldn't
lose
win
in
and
this
lose.
case.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, never mind. My answer then.
All right, sounds good. So why would priority? Or the question, I guess, comment would be, why would priority, or would priority be what it determines the winner? Why would priority matter in this case, as no player is going to get priority in the middle of an ability resolving? So what state-based action would be checked here? The question was because of the order SBAs are checked. Let's wait for Ben to finish typing. But another comment is, would they try to draw in app-nap order? And then AP replaces the draw with win first, since the Jace is actually a replacement effect. It is indeed true that Jace is a replacement effect. And in this case, that would actually be the case of what happens. Because of whoever controls the effect causes its ability would have priority. You don't get priority in the middle of an ability resolving, and each player draws X cards, would still be trying to resolve until someone has drawn 30,000 cards, or at least stopped trying to. But because it is a replacement effect, the Jace from Anthony, because Anthony would draw cards first because he is the active player, would win because it says, oh, if you draw a card while your library has no cards in it, you would win the game instead. So at the time he tries to draw the 7th card from his library, instead of drawing the card, the game will go, no, let's actually just make you win the game instead, and then not Anthony just becomes really sad as a result because he's functionally lost. So moving on from that, we can revisit any of them from before. Any of the corner cases can be revisited later. Just let me know. So let's move on to another one. So let's say I've got a liquid metal coating, and it's an artifact deck, so I must be also running Tezzeret, Agent of Bolus. So let's say I'm in a bit of a pinch right now, and I really need to be blocking this little 1/1 infect lifelink boy because I'm about to lose the game to poison counters, I guess. So I play my Tezzeret, and I'm like, oh man, I really need a creature. So I use liquid metal coating on Tezzeret, my only permanent right now. And I guess beyond liquid metal coating, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna have Tezzeret become an artifact, target artifact becomes an artifact creature with base power toughness 5/5. I'm gonna use that ability on my Tezzy. And not Anthony would be even sadder if they control Folio, but activate it on Anthony's turn. That's very true. Yeah, so I want to turn. I need a creature badly, so I'm going to turn my Tezzy into a creature. So it's now a 5/5, and we're okay because now I can actually block this Flencermite that is swinging away at me. So now, let's say this Flencermite does actually attack me, and I do choose to block with Tezzy. Now this was posted in the judge. Was it Ask a Judge forum, I believe, or a question very very similar to this had come up. So if you if you saw that one or like answered in it, I'll ask that you maybe either like not just word vomit out the answer, But what happens if I block this Flensermite with my Tezzeret Agent of Bolus? That's the question here. So this is also, it's worth noting, Tezzeret Agent of Bolus, the effect from liquid metal coating affecting it has now ended, but the target artifact becomes an artifact creature with base power toughness 5/5. As it's already been targeted with that. I saw someone typing and then it stopped. Would Tezzeret just get a -1/-1 counter and nothing else? So I will say, don't forget, I'm talking about the entire result of this combat. So that will include things like, well, this Flensermite has lifelink as well. My snap thought is that since it's a creature, we get a -1/- counter, but that's obviously wrong, or else this wouldn't be a corner case. I mean, you gotta throw some surprise ones like, oh, maybe this is easy. Um, Tezzy gets a -1/-1 counter and loses no loyalty. Yes, I'm also interested in how it affects kind of everything as a whole. So I guess the only things that would realistically be affected would be Tezzeret, Flensermite. I mean, it's going to be taking 5. Nothing really weird is going on with that. Tezzeret's kind of the weird one, and this Flensermite with Infect and Lifelink. And then, yeah. Yeah, the Knight's going to die. They will still gain a life. They will. Why do you say that Tezzeret would lose loyalty? Um, so another one's -1/-1 counter on Tezzy. No loyalty lost. Flestermite's controller gains 1 life. Tezzeret does say target artifact becomes an artifact creature with base power and toughness 5/5. So yeah, so now people are kind of noticing. Mark's question. Where is that? Oh, Tezzy's also not a walker after the question. If I'm reading the question correctly. I don't see another question from Mark. Yeah, go for it.
So the question is, why is Tezzeret still a planeswalker? Because after all, it's setting itself to be just an artifact creature, and it doesn't say that it retains its previous types. So normally it would lose those previous types, right? If it said, target permanent becomes an enchantment, it would stop being whatever it was before.
Yeah.
The reason why it's still a planeswalker is because there is specifically an exception for the phrase artifact creature. Anytime that something is turned into an artifact creature, it is treated as though it also said it retains its earlier types. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yes, I didn't see that. But yeah, so 205.1b, some effects state that an object becomes an artifact creature, and it allows it to retain everything previous. So yeah, in this case, I know I saw the correct answer here. That Tezzeret would get a -1/-1 counter from the infect. And also his thing would last. So damage can have one or more of the following results. I didn't quote every result, because that's a lot of screen real estate, and most people know what infect does to creatures. The reminder text is there, what lifelink does, and how damage works on planeswalkers. This just happens, and on creatures. This just happens to incorporate almost all of those cases in that we have damage being done to a planeswalker from a source, a planeswalker that's also a creature from a source with infect and lifelink. So in this case, Tezzy would actually lose a loyalty from taking damage because he is a planeswalker. Tezzy would gain a -1/-1 counter because he's a creature taking damage from a source with infect or wither. And whoever owns or controls this Flencermite would also gain a life because the damage caused by that creature causes you to gain that much life. So yes, Tezzy just really gets the brunt end of the stick in this case. Hopefully he does not just go off and die to the graveyard. Yeah, so another good example of kind of a weird corner case in just things becoming artifact creatures. Continuing on. So let's say we have Shahrazad. There we go. And we have this word of command. Now, this one is a more common corner case, I'm aware. Okay, common not in the sense of it happens a lot, but common in the sense of a lot of people, know of this one. These cards have some awful text, and I know that the quality on this is absolutely terrible, so we're just gonna, fix that. So Shahrazad, because I don't think that's actually Scheherazade. I think it should be a reference to her, or it definitely is. Players play a Magic subgame using their libraries as their deck. Each player who does not win the subgame loses half their life rounded up. And yes, Word of Command has quite the short story going for it. You'll look at your opponent's hand, control that player until Word of Command finishes resolving. That player plays that card if able. They can activate mana abilities from lands. Some conditions apply. If the chosen card is cast as a spell, you control the player while that spell is resolving. That's kind of the important bit here. The question, which I know has come up on a few different sources, is what happens in the Magic subgame? Because I'm going to be controlling you during, assuming you are my opponent, during the subgame. At least as far as the main game's concerned, do I control you during the subgame as well? Because, I mean, that's what the card says. And I would have tried to put the Word of Command Oracle text on the card itself, but that would have just been an absolute mess. And it either would have taken away from that amazing artwork, or just been absolutely illegible. Yes, what happens if you cast Shahrazad using a Word of Command? That is the question itself. So no, this exact question actually appeared on an episode of JudgeCast, one that Mr. Isaac King happened to guest star in. So we have someone typing an answer. But what if we said we didn't have that evil card? Well, I mean, which card is evil in this case? Because, like, Shahrazad's been, like, kind of reprinted in, like, unsets. I'm guessing that you control them during the subgame, and the subgame is played as as the subgame is played as a spell is resolving, but I'm finding I'm not great at this. Yes, both cards are evil. I mean, Word of Command definitely does make it look evil. So I think that's a pretty reasonable assumption that you would, control them during the subgame, because that's kind of literally what the card says to do. Correct. Yes. Okay, I know you put a pronunciation guide earlier, and I'm still gonna butcher it just for consistency's sake. Federico did actually find exactly the rule that kind of explains what to do. No effects or definitions created in either the main game or the subgame have any meaning in the other, except as defined by the effect that created the subgame. So in this case, Shahrazad does not say anything about having someone control them. Does not matter if Word of Command does. That is an effect that is caused from a card other than the one that is, or the effect that is creating the subgame. So no, in this case, you do not get controlled. You can still play your game normally. Unfortunately, it's not under the table and not at 1 life, but you still lose half your life, so that's good enough, I guess. I see some more people typing. I'll wait just like a little bit. Oh, all right. So, for the next one, let's say I've got the Ozolith. This one actually came up when I was just playing kind of like kitchen table magic with a friend. So they have the Ozolith. Let's say I'm at like, I don't know, 12 life ish. I'm wondering how I came to collect all these corner cases, especially as we move in the discussion of how are they helpful, when are they best avoided. Well, I don't really cover how I come to collect corner cases. I enjoy having knowledge, but we'll definitely kind of be going over the last bit later on. So yeah, let's say my opponent has the Ozolith. I'm like at 12 life or so. The Ozolith has 4 1/1 counters on it with absolute perfect cropping on them. Do not even question that. And then they've also got an Arcbound Ravager because apparently they're playing Affinity, and that was a big surprise for me as a Lantern player. And don't judge me for that, even though I know you will. The Arcbound Ravager has a total of 4 counters on it. Did I say 4 for the Ozolith? I definitely meant to say 3. Um, it's really early in the morning for me. This is like, well, I guess it's Alberta time. It's mountain time, but still. Um, so yeah, the Ozolith has 3 counters on it due to the power of mathematics. Arcbound Ravager has 4 counters on it, again due to the power of mathematics. And they've also got an Ornithopter with, say, like 1+1+1 counter on it. So the question here is, if I'm at, say, 10 life, do I still lose the game if they attack with the Ornithopter, assuming that they sacrifice like Arcbound Ravager and like throw all the counters on Ornithopter and use the Ozolith to throw every counter it has on Ornithopter as well, like all before combat? Or in essence, how many counters does this Ornithopter get, assuming we sack Arcbound Ravager to it before declaring attacks or anything? It will have a net of 13, as in it will increase by 13. Why do you say 13? So it has 1 on it already, 4 from Modular, 4 from the Arcbound also get put on the Ozolith, which puts 7 on the Thopter, and 1 from the Arcbound activated ability. I'm assuming that we have only these 3 artifacts. So if you were to sacrifice an artifact, it would have to be either the Ozolith, the Ravager, or the Ornithopter. Well, okay, Mark, you're not inherently wrong. Just because the Ozolith is prior to combat, and hiding behind an ensnaring bridge is a very, very fun way to play Magic for everyone involved. And there will be no questions about that, and I will just refuse to answer anything further about that. Um, so, but yes, I understand where your mathematics is coming from now, Federico. So in this case, yeah, that's on the right track. Because when the Ozolith itself, it's just worded. Oh, sorry. The Ozolith characters that are Arcbound Rancher would put on the Ornithopter. In this case, it actually doesn't, even though the card itself is worded like that. So it says for just in case the quality is really really bad. Whenever a creature you control leaves the battlefield, if it had counters on those, put those counters on the Ozolith. So that does genuinely make it sound like it is going to remove the counters from the Ravager and then put it onto the Ozolith. Um, that would be kind of weird to like work out in the rules because it would mean that it would have to be like a replacement effect. Instead of leaving, it would remove the counters, put them on, and then it would leave. Um, so instead, how WotC and all their glory decided to fix it is with just a huge line of text in the Oracle database to explain how it actually does it. Notably, it doesn't actually remove counters, it just causes you to put a number of counters of each kind that was on that creature onto the Ozolith. And then it explains, like, yeah, if you have two of them, they both get the same amount of counters from whatever one thing is dying. So in this case, yes, the Arcbound Ravager it could eat itself, put all of its counters on the Ozolith and on the Ornithopter. So the Ornithopter would go up to 5, the Ozolith would go up to 7, and then the Ozolith can just slap all those onto the Ornithopter at combat, putting the Ornithopter to 12, assuming that the powers of mathematics are still on my side. And then I will just get absolutely smacked in the face, assuming I don't have an ensnaring bridge out, with a dummy thick Ornithopter, and then I will just be sad because I've lost the game. I see someone is typing. Take a moment for that. No, yes. I misread the activate ability. Thought it could put counters on a Thopter. It's sacrifice an artifact, put it on itself. The module is how it yeets it onto the other stuff. Yes. All right. So for this one, this card's not actually relevant, as in this case, in this corner case, you are the head judge at a sealed competitive rules enforcement level event. Yes, eating, I see. You always eat things in Magic. That is the only proper way to put counters on them, is you just eat them at the thing. So you're the head judge at a sealed competitive REL event. The construction time has been called, so like for deck construction, and pairings are being put up. However, you notice only about 2/3 of the 175 players actually move to look at them. The rest are trying to finish their decks. What do you do in this situation? So this is another good example of a corner case. Except it's a kind of corner case not a lot of people would think of when they think, I'm looking for a corner case. DQ everyone, keep their sealed promos. You make a compelling argument. That sounds like really good EV for you. You're probably not going to really judge again, but you just got a lot of promos. Uh, uh, get a whole lot better at asking players how many are still working on their decks before posting pairings. Going out with a bang. You could, though it is a competitive event and time is being called. So do you think it's fair to the rest of the players, the what's it, roughly 58, I guess, are still making their decks, which would be 120, 147 or so, who have finished? You have two people, at least, who look like they are typing something. I think it's perfectly fair to say, understand the situation, asking that a small amount of additional time. Yep, I could agree with that. Because this is one of those things where it's like you're not gonna find an actual answer in the CR. You're not gonna find obviously not the CR. You're not gonna find an answer in like the MTR or anything like that. And so in kind of what the way that I was looking at it, I was like, okay, so you got two options. You can issue penalties to 58 people. Seems like it's just going to delay the event a significant amount, and the amount of manpower you would actually need to issue 58 penalties of like 58 tardiness penalties is so incredibly much that just doesn't really seem like a good option. Alternatively, you could just give them a time extension. Like, sure, you might deal with a few complaints, but the amount that the event, yes, issuing penalties to a lot of people will spoil the event for a lot of players. Whereas if you just give them like another, hey, like you've got like 5 minutes more, please make sure you have it finished on time. Isaac King says maybe they should have been on time. You make a compelling argument, and yes, it's one of my favorite things to say. Yeah, if you give them just like a time extension, then it just delays the event marginally. Not like to a significant amount, not nearly as much as it would be to issue 58-ish penalties to people. Clearly, the players should have got good. That's also very accurate. Yeah, so in just like my own personal opinion, as well as in talking with a level 3, um, they're saying like overall, like extending the time is just like the best option for this, the best way to resolve this corner cases. Yeah, Mark says this is what head judges do. They make decisions. This seems to fit into irregular and significant. And all of that said, with this power comes great responsibility. In essence, yes. Yeah. So it's another kind of it's a different take on corner cases though as well. So what does this all mean? Now that we've covered a couple of corner cases, so out of curiosity for everyone, why do we actually discuss corner cases as a judge? Like what makes you compelled to even like listen in on this presentation about corner cases? Um, do you have anything special? Do you have to do anything special to note this occurred? L2 never done comp. Um, I personally am not actually incredibly familiar with that procedure. As fun fact, I've never actually worked at a GP, but I've been meaning to for a while, just work and stuff. So, oh, L1. So my understanding is you wouldn't really have to. If someone were to kind of complain, then it would, I believe it gets brought to a kind of like a council to decide what to do. Um, Someone else in the chat could probably answer that question significantly better than I can, and I will read it out for the sake of the recording. Um, but it would be kind of like it would be turned into more or less like a he said, she said kind of situation, except you would have probably a significant amount of people supporting that it happened and the reason for why it happened to help absolve. It wouldn't like absolve you of blame, but absolve you of any kind of negative effect from that. If anyone else has any kind of insight on it, that's just my personal kind of what I view would happen. Then feel free to offer more clarity. Um, but beyond that, does anyone have any reasons why they enjoy discussing corner cases or why they think people would enjoy? Um, Corner cases for me contain snippets of relevant information, even though the situation as a whole is very unlikely, that end up helping me learn how to handle further situations better, especially as they tend to be more memorable. Yeah, I think that is definitely a good answer. Anyone else have any kind of insight as to like why they like corner cases or anything like that? Give it just a moment. Make sure I'm actually still on time as well. Finding corner cases helps us find where the rules may need to be amended by the rules managers. I couldn't imagine that ever coming up. Nope, definitely not at all. That was sarcasm because I know I have a very fairly monotone voice. I think that's a very good reason. Um, so some reasons that I've also found, at least in discussing with other people, as well as just my own personal opinion, is to offer knowledge to others through kind of like game-like means. In like a hey, like how does folio fancies or like any kind of draw a billion cards work with like Labman and stuff like that. To some people use it to try and like show up other judges in a form of like a friendly competition. Um, so another example would be like, hey, like what happens with, I guess, and a lot to do with like replacement effects and like Notion Thief and the cat that makes it so if someone would draw more than one cards, instead they draw a card, you draw a card. How do those work? And like, can you tell me how that works? Type of thing to have a bit of a competition. To use them as a springboard to further understand the rules and interactions of Magic, which is what I believe Greg mentioned earlier. It's kind of maybe some corner cases are a bit extreme, but some can be ported to other not so extreme but similar situations. Um, I would agree with that to an extent. By definition, corner cases are pretty much always extreme, um, but uh, to an extent, I can agree with that. And the last thing that I kind of found was to prepare others for interactions that used to be uncommon or unexpected, but are suddenly more commonplace. I don't think, in speaking with some other people, I don't know if that one's really super common, but I could see that as a reason for using corner cases in like judging communities. So, what makes corner cases good to do? Well, to start off with, it reinforces a sense of community. It's like if I'm kind of talking to other people and we have something common, like if we both like corner cases, we both like kind of obscure rules and knowledge. Well, that sounds fantastic. It's great for causing for getting new friends. It's good for like kind of bringing people together, having something common to talk about that isn't just like magic and judging and like, oh, I had this issue, this is how I resolved it type of thing. Oh, you stop typing. All right. It can be used as a like a fun way to test yourself, and sometimes even like a kind of neat way to like test others, as harkened back to in the "Why do we do that?" It can be used to critically examine aspects of the CR, as I know someone here mentioned as well. Yeah, as Mark mentioned, and see how nonsensical some of the rules are. Oh, whoops, that's a typo. And I'm just definitely gonna casually note Isaac King, as he seems to be very good at doing that, arguably exceptionally good. Um, I sometimes share fun or interesting corner cases with some friends that I know are more rules minded, even if they're not judges. Yep, I I think that is another common reason why people would do it. Um, but now, so what are some of the problems of focusing on corner cases? So let's say, so I guess yeah. With what do you think? Oh, it also gets others to explore. Yes, it does entice other people to explore the comp rules more. So what do you think some problems with kind of going over corner cases a lot could be? Could it intimidate potential judges? I believe that's actually the nope. That's not the first point I have. Oh no, but it's definitely one of the points I have. I guess I'll just So yeah, for example, like pretty much all of the previous examples, except the only exception I would make would be for the tournament policy and procedures and policies corner case. All the other ones aren't really an example of being a good judge, which is kind of like a big thing. And one of they might cause you to overthink other simpler situations. Yeah, I think that's another really good reason. Um, so, for example, your ability to explain to me how Shahrazad works with word of command will not help you in a GP at all. I regret to inform you. Knowing that the active player draws cards first only really matters in Commander. I know, it is a shock. But for some reason, Shahrazad is even banned. I don't understand why. That sounds like the definition of a fair and balanced card. If you focus on corner cases too much, you're also going to be prone to what's called the Einstellung effect. I believe it's a German word that roughly translates to like kind of like mindset or like perception. but it's specifically the negative effect of previous experiences when solving new problems. And I'm going to clarify that negative effect in this case. To be fair, 2 Jaces and fully is still possible in standard. Uh, give it a bit, okay? Standard is rotating soon. Soon it won't be, but yes, it is still possible, but it's just not probable. The chances of that actually coming up are just very very minor. Maybe in like, oh no, Inverter just got banned in Pioneer, so it wouldn't even like happen to pop up in Pioneer realistically. Um, yeah, so when I say the negative effect of a previous experience, I'm not talking about like, oh, this experience left me feeling bad. I mean, I'll cover that example later. You're in a particular frame of mind from previous things you've been dealing with. So the textbook example of this is I don't have a little graphic for this, unfortunately. It's the kind of like the bucket question of I have a bucket that could hold 40 gallons, because I think most people are American, of a liquid. I have one containing that could hold 14 gallons of a liquid and 3 gallons of a liquid. I need to make 20 gallons of a liquid. How do I do that? Well, to spoiler alert, you fill up the 40, you then take out or fill up the 14 from the 40, dump that out, and then the 2 3s, and then you have 20 left. If you keep doing a bunch of questions like this, then if you suddenly get an easier question, um, some studies have actually shown that you're actually just going to either severely overthink that question, or some people have, when presented with the easier question, actually just said it was impossible to do. So an example of that in Magic, which is a little bit more kind of hand wavy, like if you're going through corner cases involving like Blood Moon and Urborg, or Humility and Opalescence, or like anything like that, and then all of a sudden you have something that has nothing to do with layers, but it's something to do with the replacement effect. It will just be harder for you to kind of swap, going from I'm focusing really hard on layers and, oh, where does Blood Moon apply, where does Urborg apply, to, for example, like the Notion Thief and the cat, the Collector of Alms, I believe his name is. Um, and how do those interact? Like the initial reaction could be like, oh, it must be a layer thing. I'm gonna go check. Like, I want to go look and see where they would all apply in layers. Oh, that's not the case. Okay, what else could it be? Type of, and it would make it harder for you to do quickly. Another thing is like if you're preparing for an event by quizzing yourself with corner cases, and then after quizzing yourself for however long it takes for you to get to the event, unless you're driving, don't do that. That's illegal. And then you just have really easy questions. You'll be, as one person noted, you're going to be a lot more prone to overthinking everything and be like, oh, well, I was like not literally speaking to yourself, but like subconsciously be like, I was having a really hard time with some of these corner cases. Someone's asking me now how, I don't know, Notion Thief works. Am I getting the question? Like, am I actually answering this accurately? And like, you're really a lot more prone to double guessing or second guessing yourself, and it'll kind of reduce your confidence, which a lot of players can see. I see some people are typing. I'll give it a moment, see if it finishes quickly, but in the interest of time, because I think there's about 15 minutes left, and there will be time for questions later. So why could this be a bad thing? So if you have a community that just focuses on corner cases a lot, as one person did note earlier, it can create a huge barrier to entry for newer judges. If like, oh, um, Chad's a new judge, and he really wants to become a judge, and everyone in the community is like, hey, new judge 1983046, do you know how Panglacial Worms interacts with Sylvala? That's a very, very corner casey thing. That's never going to come up, except probably not even in Commander. Like it's not relevant to know, and it's kind of it will. Oh, that's not what I was going to go for. It just never will come up, and it just gives a sense of like, oh, like this is really daunting for me to kind of tackle. Um, if you're constantly researching corner cases, it can make you just worse as a judge, especially starting off. Um, I'm sure there's been stories about that. So it's like you can tell me exactly how layers work, which is fantastic and all, but you can't tell me how combat works. It's like what's actually going to be relevant and say like on your L1 test, um, or possibly even on like the rules advisor test. Is I think that's on there. Not gonna lie, I've never taken it because grandfathered. Um, if you have a hard time with corner cases that you give yourself, it can reduce your confidence in actual events with like the quote unquote easy questions. Oh, I see someone is typing something here. Yeah, so just a lot of things like this. It can make you a lot worse as a judge, especially like if you have a good foundation of knowledge. Then sure, then it's okay to like start looking into corner cases. But until then, you'll like it could just make you focus on all of the wrong places, and then actually have a negative effect on like some of the players that you might be trying to kind of coach through because you'll have to like look up when do blockers actually get assigned versus like when do I order how the blockers are, when can I do stuff in the middle of that, and just kind of a lot of things like that. So in conclusion, um, it's like corner corner cases are pretty good if you already know what you're doing, but they can easily be just as negative. So if you use them when becoming a judge, it's not going to help. It's going to make you feel like there's so much to learn and there's a lot to conquer. If you're using them amongst other judges, it can make you unintentionally even ostracize newer judges, just with like, oh, like I've got a lot more knowledge than you. And it might not be trying to come across like that, but some people could be like, or view that as there's such a gap between where you are and where I am. I could never make it to you. I should just not bother trying, type of thing. If you use them as study materials, it's going to cause you to miss a lot of the fundamentals, especially like going for your L1, maybe even going for your L2. Not a lot of corner cases are really on the L2 test, or on the L2 exam. So trying to memorize how like I guess yeah, like folio fancies works with Jaces and things like that, not super relevant. It's not really going to help you. Or if there is a question like that, it's just going to be one question instead of the 49 other ones that could be easily more important. But on the other hand, they can help a community bond by discussing rules, um, and they can help you think critically about the rules and like how cards work with each other. So all in all, corner cases, while they're fun, are pretty situational and just like not for everyone. If you enjoy them, awesome. Like I'm not here to yuck on your yum. Um, but just it's a good idea to be mindful of others while doing so, especially when trying to promote and grow like the judge community. Citations, because there are actually psychology papers about some of these things, as well as some people that I've talked to about the presentation. But beyond that, any questions? How much time is left, actually? There's like 10 minutes, so that was a little bit early, but that's okay. Well, that's not technically a question. Are you from academia, Brendan? I noticed you included your references. Um, I so I guess my academic background is I've done like a first year in like Bachelor of Science in Mathematics and Statistics, and trying to get into medicine. So I just I'm of the opinion of if I'm going to say something that isn't my opinion, even if I can like modify it a little bit, um, I want to include like I want to make it obvious. Hey, this is where I got my information from. It's not like I'm trying to rip off someone else's idea because that's real BM. If you were academia, there would be more unnecessary ones. Yes, that's probably very true. I'm sure I could have like found like philosophy papers that would contribute to this. Probably like other psychology papers. And probably some references which reviewer once said there would be because they know the author. Yup. I guess also, I don't think I still have. Where's my mouse? I don't think there's anything controversial. Don't forget, fill out the feedback form for Isaac and for me. I don't know if I'll get a copy. I'm assuming I will. But in the interest, oh look, he even popped it up there. Yes, feedback is important. I always welcome feedback, especially since, as noted, this is a huge departure from what I normally do. In not just talking about. Ah, excellent. Yes, I get a copy of it. As I don't normally talk about a lot of soft, quote unquote, softer things or opinion things like this. But I figured it would be appropriate for the quote unquote experimental conference. Person is still typing. But I know for downsides, getting 3 of those wrong kind of make me. I'm having a hard time reading. I know for the downsides, getting 3 of those wrong kind of makes me worry I know less than I think. I also come from the issue where all my comp REL events, in quotations, has been mock tournaments, which admittedly has me hesitant to do a full event because, well, things get weird. So yeah, I think that's honestly an excellent example of the negative effect of corner cases on judges. Um, Realistically, like some of those, like you're never going to see them come up. Like in my experience of competitive judging, which granted is not extensive, but it's a significantly non-zero number. Um, I have never had to deal with a single one of those questions, pretty much ever, or anything even close to them. A lot of the time, especially in like competitive events, most of the questions are like, "Hey, can I get the Oracle text on this card?" Especially if someone's playing with foreign cards or cards not in your native language. So like realistically, if you know like if you have a firm understanding on like how the rules of Magic work, um, not in like a corner casey kind of way, like oh when do people or how do people draw cards, but like oh that's yes very true. Important feedback on mock tournaments. Where where in the world are you located? But yeah, so if you have or yeah if you have like a good understanding of like the rules of Magic and you have the ability to explain it to other people in a clear and concise way, then realistically you would probably be fine in a competitive event. Um, as well, assuming you also have a good understanding of the IPG and philosophies of that as well. But I think if that's like pretty well all the questions, um, it's like yeah, like 7 minutes early. Oopsie doodle. Um, but I'll stop doing this share thing, but I'll still hang around at least in text. I'll probably mute myself because background noise. Yeah. I guess thank you for coming to my TED talk. Um, and as noted, yeah, Brandon S. L2 from Canada. Cheers.
Woo! I don't want to spike my recording, so I'm not going to do my normal screaming. But thanks for the presentation.
You're welcome. And that's fair.